For 1,000 years, before pharmacies reached the rural north, Norse families kept a small medicine cabinet of wild plants harvested from forest, meadow, and bog. Their healers carried no written field guide. 5 weeds did most of the daily work. Modern science has now studied every one of them. Number 1. Yarrow, known in Norwegian as ryllik, stands at the center of the Norse rural medicine cabinet. Medieval sagas and herbals describe yarrow leaves pressed into battlefield wounds, carried in small leather pouches by those who expected injury. The Hauksbók manuscript, dating to the late 1300s, records yarrow as a blood-stanching herb, valued for its strong astringent property. Archaeobotanical studies from Viking settlements in Østfold and Urtica reveal layers of yarrow pollen coinciding with periods of habitation, suggesting deliberate cultivation for household use. Modern research has begun to confirm what Norse families practiced by necessity. The alkaloid Achillea, one of yarrow's primary compounds, has been shown in laboratory settings to accelerate clot formation by as much as 36% compared to controls, reducing bleeding time by nearly a minute. In a 2020 randomized controlled trial from Iran, a topical yarrow extract applied to arthritic knees reduced pain scores by 31% over 6 weeks, an effect comparable to standard anti-inflammatory gels. The active components, including sesquiterpene lactones and flavonoids, appear to inhibit pathways responsible for both pain and inflammation, supporting the plant's enduring reputation as a first-aid remedy. Yarrow's feathery, fern-like leaves and flat-topped clusters of white flowers make it easy to identify in meadows, roadsides, and disturbed soils across North America. The plant is now naturalized throughout the United States and Canada, thriving in the same kinds of open, marginal ground that Norse homesteaders once favored. Topical use is generally safe, though those with ragweed allergies or on anticoagulant medication should exercise caution. Pregnant or nursing women are advised to avoid internal use due to limited safety data. Positive identification before use, every time. In second place, plantain, known in Norwegian as groblad, served as the everyday first aid leaf for Norse households. Medieval law codes such as the Gulatingsloven granted tax-free rights to gather broadleaf plantain for wound salves, underscoring its value in rural life. The Anglo-Saxon Lacnunga, which circulated among Norse communities, called plantain the mother of warts, a name reflecting its status as a universal remedy for cuts, stings, and splinters. Fresh leaves were pressed onto insect bites or abrasions, and the plant's reputation for drawing out thorns and calming skin irritation passed from oral tradition into written herbals by the 13th century. Modern research has begun to clarify the chemistry behind this long-standing use. Plantain leaves contain 2 key compounds, aucubin and allantoin. Aucubin is an iridoid glycoside with anti-inflammatory effects, and allantoin stimulates fibroblast activity and collagen synthesis in wounded skin. Laboratory studies show that plantain extract accelerates tissue regeneration, supporting its role in wound healing. In vitro, fibroblast proliferation increases nearly 2-fold, and collagen production rises, laying the groundwork for new tissue. While large-scale clinical trials remain limited, a randomized controlled trial in diabetic foot ulcers reported that 62% of patients using a plantain-based ointment reached at least 90% wound closure, compared to 38% in the control group. Although this figure awaits further replication, it echoes the plant's enduring reputation as a salve for chronic and slow-healing wounds. In North America, both Plantago major and Plantago lanceolata now thrive in lawns, driveways, and compacted soils. The most reliable field mark is the set of parallel veins running the length of each leaf, a diagnostic feature that sets plantain apart from most other common weeds. External use is considered very safe, with only rare reports of mild dermatitis. Internal use should be avoided in cases of intestinal obstruction or severe kidney disease, and pregnant or nursing women are advised to limit intake until further safety data are available. Positive identification before use, every time. Third on our list, stinging nettle, known in Norwegian as brennenesle, was a staple of the Norse rural kitchen and medicine chest. Each spring, after the long northern winter, households gathered the first tender shoots for soup, marking the season's renewal and restoring vital nutrients lost during months of preserved fare. The practice is recorded in the Hákonar saga, which describes nettle broth as both food and remedy. Nutritional analysis of cooked nettle reveals a remarkable profile, with 6 milligrams of iron and over 300 micrograms of vitamin K per 100 grams, making it a rare wild source of minerals at a time when deficiency was common. Beyond nourishment, brennenesle leaves were valued for topical relief of joint pain and inflammation. In 2009, a randomized controlled trial in Romania examined the effect of a fresh nettle leaf paste applied to arthritic knees. After 8 weeks, patients reported a 38% reduction in pain scores compared to placebo, a significant improvement attributed to the plant's flavonoids and phenolic acids, which inhibit cyclooxygenase enzymes involved in pain and inflammation. Laboratory studies further confirm nettle's ability to modulate inflammatory pathways, lending scientific weight to its traditional use for musculoskeletal complaints. Field identification is straightforward: jagged serrated leaves opposite on the stem, with a dense covering of fine stinging hairs. Nettle thrives in moist, nutrient-rich soils, in fence rows, ditches, and the edges of abandoned fields across North America. Handling fresh plants requires gloves, as the tiny hairs can cause brief but intense skin irritation. Blanching or boiling neutralizes the sting, making the greens safe for consumption. Those taking anticoagulant medications should exercise caution, as the high vitamin K content may interfere with therapy. Positive identification before use, every time. Number 4. Dandelion, known in Norwegian as løvetann, brings the bitter dimension to the Norse household medicine cabinet. In rural Norway, the arrival of spring meant gathering the first jagged leaves of løvetann, not for ornament but as a practical tonic. Early herbals describe the bitter greens steeped as tea or eaten fresh to wake the stomach after winter's heavy fare, while roasted roots were sometimes brewed as a coffee substitute. The tradition of using dandelion as a digestive aid is deeply rooted, with household manuals from the 18th century listing it as a remedy for sluggish digestion and a staple in spring cleansing routines. Modern research clarifies the mechanism behind this everyday practice. The bitter compounds, taraxacin and taraxasterol, activate human bitter taste receptors known as TAS2R along the lining of the gut. This stimulation triggers a reflex increase in gastric secretions and bile flow, setting off the digestive process before a meal. Laboratory studies have confirmed that dandelion extracts can reduce markers of oxidative stress in liver cells. In one crossover trial, a 1.5% taraxasterol-rich extract led to a 12% drop in serum ALT, a key enzyme of liver health. While most of this evidence comes from in vitro and small human studies, the findings support the Old Norse habit of reaching for bitter greens as both food and medicine. Field identification is straightforward: a basal rosette of deeply toothed leaves, bright yellow flower heads in early spring, and a single hollow stem. The plant's range now stretches across lawns, fields, and city lots throughout North America. Dandelion is generally safe as a food and gentle tea, though those with gallstones or on lithium therapy should use caution due to its diuretic and bile-stimulating effects. Positive ID before use, every time. Mullein, or kongslis in Norwegian, has long been a household remedy for chronic coughs and stubborn respiratory irritation. 14th century Norwegian herbals describe kongslis tea as a comfort for those worn down by lingering bronchitis or the smoky air of peat fires. Its tall, candle-like stalks once dotted farm edges, so valued that medieval law exempted it from the thatching tax, recognizing its dual role as both roof material and medicine. Modern pharmacology explains why this plant became a staple for chronic cough. The German Commission E, in its 1998 monograph, reviewed clinical studies and found moderate evidence that mullein leaf tea helps soothe productive coughs. The secret lies in its chemistry. The leaves are rich in mucilage, a thick gel that coats the throat and bronchial tubes, easing irritation and calming the cough reflex. Saponins in the leaf act as mild expectorants, loosening mucus and making it easier to clear the airways. While more rigorous trials are needed, laboratory models confirm that mucilage forms a protective film and saponins support the body's natural clearing process. Identifying mullein is simple. In its first year, it forms a large, fuzzy, gray-green rosette of leaves, soft and thickly felted. By the second year, a single stalk rises up to 2 meters, crowned with a dense spike of yellow flowers. Today, mullein thrives in sandy soils and open fields across North America, just as it did on old Norwegian farms. Mullein is non-toxic when prepared as tea or tincture. Straining out the fine leaf hairs prevents throat irritation. Rare allergic reactions can occur, and those on blood pressure medication should monitor for mild drops, though such effects are uncommon. Across these 5 plants, the Norse rural medicine cabinet reveals a pattern. Ordinary weeds, ryllik, groblad, brennenesle, lovetan, and kongslees carried proven daily value, now confirmed by modern science. Heritage and evidence converge in our own yards. The lesson endures. Positive identification before use, every time.